Hi, I'm Kristen Oaks-White.
And I'm Avery Davidson. Thank you for joining us for This Week in Louisiana Agriculture, the only TV show bringing Louisiana farmers and consumers together every week.
This week, the Advocate newspaper wrote an editorial pointing out the hurdles ahead for Louisiana to begin trade with Cuba. The most notable was the lack of money and financing for the island nation.
The editorial also pointed out the opportunity, especially for rice farmers. Louisiana exports nearly $440 million worth of rice every year, and Cuba imports $173 million of rice, most of it from Vietnam. Despite importing 80% of all the food Cubans eat, farmers there are trying their hand at urban agriculture to meet the demand for fresh food. The rust-colored soil breaks as oxen pull a harrow through this field. It's how work is done here at the Organoponico Vivero Alamar Farm Cooperative just outside of Havana, Cuba.
Eat healthy, and it's good for body and it's good for sex.
Isis Salcinas is the daughter of founder Miguel. She says this cooperative started in 1997 and now spans 25 acres. The goal then was to provide the people who live nearby with fresh, organically grown produce. Now, it's tough to make ends meet.
We produce many vegetables for the community: lettuce, pak choy, beet, carrot, many variety, but the people can obtain food, fresh, organic, at a very good price.
The equipment here is old, sometimes repurposed, partly because of the trade embargo imposed by the U.S. Congress.
It's a very hard situation for all of the part of the economy, but in the agriculture we can feel this situation too, because the market is empty and the tools, the implement, the inputs, the infrastructure is obsolete, and we have to renew all of this. And if the embargo continues, we can obtain all of these implements that we need.
Like the old implements, many of the hands harvesting herbs belong to those who are more weathered than the equipment.
Hi, I'm Mike. How are you?
Good.
Mike Melancon is a sugarcane farmer from St. Martin Parish. He's also on the executive board of the Louisiana Farm Bureau, so he knows the problems that come with an aging population involved in agriculture. It's one place he and Miguel see eye to eye.
The way, every time you see a farmer, you see that the farmer is wearing with very simple clothes. And everybody thinks that the farmers are poor people. Young people want something else.
Aquí hay campesinos millonarios.
There are millionaire farmers here.
Y los hijos.
And the children,
uno es arquitecto,
one is an architect, the other one is a doctor,
el otro es músico,
and the other one is a musician.
Aunque ganen 3 veces o 4 más, no le interesa hacer el trabajo de la agricultura.
Even if they make 1, 2, 3 times more than they would make by being an architect, they just don't care about agriculture.
We can give 2,000, 3,000 pesos.
Isis cares about agriculture, which makes Miguel proud. It reminds him of the hope he saw in the United States before the embargo.
Sin embargo, cuando yo estuve en California en un evento muy grande, había 2,000 personas en el evento.
I was in California in a very big event. There were 2,000 people.
La mitad eran mujeres.
Half of it were women.
Y la otra mitad, de la mitad eran jóvenes.
And the other half were young people.
En Cuba, jóvenes en la agricultura.
In Cuba, it's very weird to see young people.
Las hijas de los campesinos estudian inglés.
The farmer's daughter, they learn English.
Para trabajar de traductora.
To work as translators.
Miguel can be lighthearted about the situation, but breaking down financial barriers to trade is serious business that Louisiana Farm Bureau First Vice President Jim Harper says would benefit both countries.
Rice would probably benefit the most from trade with Cuba, but we also produce a lot of poultry, we produce cattle and soybeans. All of these commodities Cuba needs. And, I just can't emphasize it enough. If we could get the financial restrictions lifted, Cuba, I think, would do business with us.
I felt honored to witness that exchange between Melancon and Miguel Salcinas. There are some farmers in Cuba who are really trying to do things differently, in some cases because they do not have access to the fertilizers and pesticides we have here in the States. Something ranchers in Cuba have that we do not is a vaccine to prevent ticks. During this latest trip to Cuba, Dr. Mario Estrada told the group about the work he's doing at the Cuban Center for Genetic Engineering and Biotechnology that includes a vaccine developed in Cuba which prevents ticks from biting cattle. Estrada pointed to research done by the USDA which shows the vaccine to be more than 90% effective in preventing ticks from latching on to Holstein cattle. Right now, because of the embargo, this vaccine and other vaccines are not available in the United States.
I think that in the new era of the relationship between the state and Cuba, this will be one product that we can use and will be really very good for both sides. So it is very good example for the use of one Cuban product for animal health in the state.
Estrada also talked about vaccines created in Cuba for human health, most notably a vaccine to treat lung cancer and another drug which helps heal diabetic ulcers and has reduced amputations in Cuba by 70%. This will be my last story from this latest trip to Cuba. Plans are for Governor John Bel Edwards to travel to Cuba in October, along with some of the port officials who were on this last trip. That is when the ports will sign a memorandum of understanding with the Cuban government.
Well, there's no doubt that you've likely heard about the recent spate of mergers and acquisitions of several ag companies, Dow and DuPont, as well as Bayer's attempt to buy Monsanto, the world's largest seed company. So what's in it for the farmer? TWILA's AJ Sabine takes a closer look.
Earlier this year at the Commodity Classic, everyone on the trade show floor and beyond talked about the sale of Syngenta, a Swiss ag chemical company with a plant here in Louisiana, to ChemChina. Since then, shareholders of both Dow and DuPont have approved the merger of two of the world's largest chemical makers. Farmers who use crop protection products from one or all of these companies should pay attention to price, according to LSU Ag Center Professor of Ag Economics, Kurt Guidry.
Certainly when you have a kind of a consolidation of suppliers in the industry, that always brings concerns about monopolistic type of control over the market share, market power, and producing fewer options for our producers as they're making their input decisions. Certainly we're in a time in a market environment where producers need to look for ways that they can cut costs, they can look to gain efficiencies because of our depressed market situation. And so the potential for some of that flexibility, for some of those options that producers may have or have had in the past, not being there because of these acquisitions and these mergers is certainly something that we'll have to monitor.
Monsanto could be next. Both Bayer and BASF have made overtures to acquire Monsanto, the world's largest seed company. LSU professor of antitrust law Raymond Diamond says product innovation could be impacted if the merger is successful.
One significant aspect of a vigorous competitive market is vigorous levels of innovation. When we have a small number of competitors, or even worse, only one competitor in a market, like a monopoly, there is less of an incentive to innovate, to get better, to get a jump on the competition, because the market is shared so well, and competitors are able to see what one another is doing.
For farmers like Heath Morris, who struggle to overcome a sluggish commodity market, he sees mergers between these ag companies as a way to stay competitive by consolidating resources, such as labor.
Big business has to get bigger because, for one, you've got stockholders and shareholders in that company that, are pushing for that. So they want, more revenue, more income, bigger return, bigger dividend, higher stock, so they're, those guys are pushing for it too. And you bring it down to a small business owner, it's the same thing, a mom and pop, they want, more income and, longer sustainability, and that the only way you can do that is by growth.
Still, Guidry is hopeful that innovation and new product lines will come forth if these mergers and acquisitions find regulatory approval.
Anytime when we have these mergers, some of the theories that they're going to gain some efficiencies there, they're going to increase some technology there, some technology transfer there, and hopefully down the road that they may open up some new technology for producers down the road. That's the premise behind some of these mergers and some of these acquisitions.
For This Week in Louisiana Agriculture, I'm A.J. Sabine.
As of July 20th of this year, shareholders of both Dow and DuPont have approved the $59 billion merger of the two ag giants. According to published reports, once regulators approve the merger, the company will split into 3 separate entities.
Corn or soybean growers can nearly double their yields with properly irrigated fields. Now, farmers can conserve water and sufficiently irrigate their fields with technology and the expertise of the Natural Resources Conservation Service. LSU irrigation specialists explained the value of the solar-powered surge valve during a field day in Morehouse Parish. State conservationist Kevin Norton explains that the purpose of the surge valve is to reduce the tailwater that leaves the field and to even the distribution of water within the furrow, which ultimately saves water and cuts the costs of irrigation.
You know, here's a piece of equipment for a few $1,000s that's even automated, that it has an electronic control, so you're not having to come out and manually switch the water from one pipe to the next. This one will cycle for it. You use it in conjunction with a faucet program, and you're able to even up the water going down the furrow, and to reduce the amount of tailwater going out, so that at the very end of the field you have the right amount of water for growing your crop.
Farmers planted nearly 400,000 acres of corn in Louisiana last year. A little later in the show, TWILA's Carl Wiggers will show us how one equipment manufacturer is working closely with Louisiana corn farmers. Oh, what?
Well, there's a new tool on the farm, and it may look a little familiar.
Oh yeah, I'm not playing Pokemon, I promise you, but I'm checking the latest information from the LSU Ag Center. It's a new program. They're delivering up-to-minute text on everything from disease and insects in the fields to weather and upcoming meetings right here.
As TWILA's Neil Melancon tells us, it's been a big help for both farmers and researchers.
Normally, when rice researcher Dustin Harrell goes through a rice field and finds blight, his next step is to start on research. But these days, he reaches for a phone. Thanks to a new program from LSU, he can let farmers in the area know that the disease has been spotted and can take appropriate steps immediately to stop its spread. This texting program was an idea that came at the grassroots level from a rice farmer who saw similar use when selling his crop.
The rice price has changed. They would text that out, and he could see that. If he wanted to sell some rice, he could text back and do it that way. And he thought that would be excellent for our information.
Rice farmer Paul Zonbrecker has been using the texting program since the start. He says one great new feature is getting newsletters from the Ag Center that he can share.
It's nice to get all that information on your phone, because you know, with technology these days, you can just push a button and get a printout for everybody to see. It's so much nicer to look at a hard copy sometimes.
The program has since spread to other commodities, but rice is still the largest group at more than 240 members. Dr. Harrell says each commodity group has the ability to help farmers make immediate changes with news local to their parish.
If something important happened in a rice field, say disease broke out, we had blast in a certain area, we could text that information to the farmers, and they would know that, you know, blast has been sighted in this particular area. If you have a susceptible variety, you know, you probably ought to think about using a fungicide application.
And Zonbrecker has done just that this year, doubling up on fungicide for his crop to protect it. He says he thinks this is just the start of how useful these texts will be.
You know, you have crop consultants out there that look at a lot of fields, but now you have all of this stuff combined with all these people. As soon as something hits, that's real important in the field that may need controlling or attention right away, you're getting it instantaneously. And who knows, but further along, this could save us a lot of money and a lot of hardship in the future.
Now, Dr. Harrell uses a program called Remind, which is used by educational institutions to anonymously send out text messages to large groups, and then he gets those back, so nobody really can see who's on the group specifically. To sign up is super easy. All you do is send a text message to 81010 and then put in your specific commodity that you're interested in. For instance, rice is at LA Rice. You just enter that in, and just like that, you can get a text message right back to you, just like that.
Back at the office, Dr. Harrell is compiling information from a poll he sends out weekly, which helps him do his job.
Once a week, I ask the farmers, you know, what yields have you seen in the last week? Text me back the variety, how many acres, the yield, and what parish you're in, and I'll compile that and send it out so everybody can kind of have an idea of how yields are going, and you can kind of look and see are my yields comparable to everybody else in my area?
In turn, this information will help rice farmers next year and in the years to come in planting the best varieties that give farmers the best return. From Acadia Parish for This Week in Louisiana Agriculture, I'm Neil Melancon.
As Neil said, it's easy to get enrolled in the program. Just text that number 81010 and enter in the commodity group you'd like to be a part of. No one but the folks running the commodity group will be able to see your number, and so when you reply, it only goes back to the folks at LSU, which means you won't be getting a bunch of group replies. A complete list of commodity groups and instructions for the texting program can be found on our website at twilatv.org.
Yeah, Dustin Harrell was telling us that when he first started it, he used a different program. And so he sent out the mass text, and then everybody's phone started blowing up, and then started getting phone calls at the same time as the text. Big mess. But they've got it refined now. It's all working great.
Good to hear.
Well, still to come on TWILA, we get an update on how March's floods are impacting harvest.
But first, how one Louisiana farmer is helping make harvesting machines work better for his neighbors. Stay with us.
Many corn farmers across the state are watching their crop dry in the fields.
And that means the harvest is about to begin. This week, TWILA's Carl Wiggers introduces us to a farmer in North Louisiana who's working closely with Case IH to make harvest better for all.
Combines are beginning to slice through cornfields at Hard Bargain Farms in Epes, Louisiana. Robert Warren is a partner and the operations manager here on the farm. So far, he's pleased with the production of this corn.
You know, for dry land, that's what we're cutting some of that now is dry land, so our yields are coming in fairly well.
Considering the wet spring, Warren remains optimistic about this year's crop.
I don't think we'll nearly have the crop we've had the last 2 years, but we've had some record crops the last in 14 and 15. I don't see exceeding that, but I think we're going to have I would say, above average corn crop.
Hard Bargain Farms is a sprawling 10,000-acre farm producing corn, soybeans, and rice. To harvest all of those acres, Warren depends on Case IH equipment. For this reason, he welcomes a team from CNH Industrial to his farm to run field tests on Case IH harvest equipment. Zachary Harmon is a field test engineer who works year-round to refine the combine that will end up on farms right here in Louisiana and around the world.
Without the farmers and stuff, we wouldn't be able to do our job, and we wouldn't be able to release a good product. I mean, you can only do so much in a lab environment. You don't see near the conditions that you can see out in the field, and I mean, there's a huge difference from testing down in Louisiana to testing up in Wisconsin. I mean, so you get all these different conditions that you can only see if you have farmers like Hard Bargain that's willing to let us come down here and do our work on their farms and stuff.
This Louisiana farm offers the group a unique setting to run their tests.
This is the hottest place we go to pretty much.
Humidity has a huge factor in a harvest, you know, with the moist and the damp air that we have. It's something they're not used to.
We see a lot of greener corn here, so the wet corn and stuff, they do a little bit more of that here because you get into your hurricane season or something like that. They're trying to get it out of the field and stuff, so you can get a lot of that condition down here, which is really helpful for us because the wet corn is some of the hardest stuff you could ever harvest.
For Warren, the advantage to seeing these tests happen right here on his farm is really simple.
If it doesn't work on my farm, it's not going to work. You know, they can do all they want to in the plant, in the factory, in the engineering department, but if it doesn't work out here on the farm, it hasn't done anything. So it's a benefit to us.
Not only does this partnership benefit Warren and his peers with better equipment today, but future generations of farmers will reap even greater rewards. For Warren, that next generation farmer can be found right here. His son Ty is at the wheel of this Case IH 9230, one of Hard Bargain's 2 combines in the field today.
To see him grow up in this, and I mean, he's been driving tractors since he was 5, 6 years old, you know, and to see him where he is now, and I don't hesitate 1 minute to put him on anything out here, whether it be the combine, a big truck, a dozer, a tractor, planter, whatever. But to being right here beside me all these times, you know, it's just been a wonderful, wonderful profession to be raised in.
Located just north of Delhi, Louisiana, Hard Bargain Farms felt the impact of the spring flooding like many farmers across that part of the state. Warren says around 13 to 15 inches of rain fell on the farm in the initial downpour. In March, he lost nearly 1,500 acres of corn to the heavy rains. Many of those acres he replanted were right in the middle of fields. This makes harvest tougher on Warren today. Warren has already harvested the earlier corn that survived the spring rains, so now he has to send his machines back into that same field to finish the job. With the number of acres Warren still has to harvest, time is now the issue he is more concerned with.
We had to cut around to start with, and then we have to take the time out of our day now to go back and get it. So yeah, sure, it takes time. Any time that you're turning around on the end of the field, you know, or turning around out in the middle of the field, you're losing time. But then again, like I said, that we got to go back to it, and we've moved on to other fields, we got to go back and get those spots. It's pretty time consuming.
Warren expects to crank up the pace and be in drier corn beginning next week. I drove past a lot of corn on the way to his farm yesterday, and I feel sure that he's not the only one starting the long days of harvest next week. I know my dad's one of those, and there's lots of farmers in corn country that is getting that way.
I know a lot of you guys up there, corn, soybean, all of the grain farmers, I know that they're just ready for this season to be in the books.
They really, really are.
Well, great story, Carl Wiggers.
Still to come on TWILA, we do something very dangerous. Talk about politics and agriculture online.
Stay with us.
Now it's time for this week's Trending on TWILA segment, where we go online to see what people are saying about agriculture on social media, and maybe a little bit of politics too.
A little bit. It was a tough week to find some agriculture stuff on social media. But with the 2016 election season in full swing, people have been posting a lot of political banner on social media.
While immigration and economy are hot button issues, agriculture often seems to be absent from the candidates' talking points. Many farmers and agriculture groups are posting about their concerns where their presidential candidates stand on ag issues.
American Farm Bureau posted this article, "What do the candidates know about agriculture?" With that in mind, the National Young Farmers Coalition posted a helpful guide to choosing the right candidates during this election season. We posted a link to that article on our website at twilatv.org.
Meanwhile, the combines are rolling across the state, and many farmers are posting photos and videos as their harvest season kicks off. From wine grapes to rice fields, lots of Louisiana farmers are busy harvesting their crops at this time of the year.
And we want to see all of your photos and videos while you're in the field this season. Share your harvest post with the hashtag TWILA Harvest for a chance to win a special prize pack and have your photo maybe possibly put on our show. And to all of our Louisiana sugarcane farmers, we know that you're busy planting this time of year, so please share those photos with us too.
Yes, and we always enjoy seeing them. I know last year we got some great shots, especially from the folks up in the Delta. Love sunrise and sunset pics. They're gorgeous.
We did. We love them. We love them. And so now we're moving on to this week's TWILA Trivia. Last week our question was, which of the following is not one of the original Pokemon characters? And the correct answer is C, Bovaraptor. This week's trivia question is, according to the USDA, 29% of the U.S. corn crop goes into making which product? Is it A, liquor, B, livestock feed, or C, ethanol? To enter this week's trending trivia contest, simply log on to your Facebook or Twitter account and post your answer with the hashtag TWILA Trivia, or you can always submit your answer on our website at twilatv.org.
I'm going to issue another challenge here, Kristen. Okay, we're going to go with hashtag, we want this to trend as well, hashtag Bovaraptor. And I want someone out there to draw what you think a Bovaraptor would look like. I could just see a Holstein with these big claws, maybe wings, I don't know. Be creative. I want to see a Bovaraptor before the end of the week.
Well, we will have to see because I made it up, so use your imagination.
We'll give you some kind of award. But the Louisiana Farm Bureau won a few awards on the national stage. At the annual American Farm Bureau Spark Conference, the Louisiana Farm Bureau received awards for Best News Story for the coverage you saw here of the flood of 2016, Best Educational or Instructional Video for a piece Kristen put together for the annual Farm Bureau Convention, and Best Blog for the insight shared by A.J. Sabine and other members of the LSU Ag Leadership Class 14 on its recent trip to South Africa. Again, these are national awards competing against all of the other farm bureaus in the country. Now, I'm going to brag a little bit more about this week in Louisiana agriculture because we received an honorable mention in the Best TV Show category. And the reason why that's a big deal is because they give an award. An honorable mention is something they don't have to do. California Farm Bureau won the award for its show, California Bountiful, which, Kristen, I know you can attest to this. Beautifully shot show, wonderfully written, excellent show. You should check it out online. They really put a lot of work into it.
That's very true, and they have a lot of good things to shoot. Grapes, wine, flowers, beautiful
all the things
video.
You love.
Well, that does it for this edition of TWILA. Be sure to join us next week when we'll learn how having a garden in your backyard can make a difference in the health of your child.
Until then, you can watch all of our stories online at twilatv.org and be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
For all of us here at TWILA, thanks for joining us. We hope to see you again right here next week.